Now, Jossie, you're not a full-time nomad yet. You are going to go travelling soon, but you live in an apartment and you've got not a huge garden space to grow a personal garden of veggies. Have you ever tried growing your own veggies and bits and pieces?
In days gone by, when my husband was around and alive and bringing up the family, yes, I did do a lot of gardening and when we lived in Gympie and other places. But now, no, I do a little bit of potting, I guess.
Potting? Sorry, not taking pot. Okay, let's make that clear for the audience. All right. Potting.
Potting, as in growing herbs and things within pots on my back
patio. You do that? Oh, good.
I do, or I have done in the past. It's there much at the moment because I've been going away a lot and, it's a bit hard to look after them when you're not here. But hydroponics I wouldn't mind getting into.
Okay.
Well, Brian's done a bit of hydroponics as well, actually, and aquaponics. We did that in Sydney. And the only problem was that one of our poodles was a mad keen water dog, and he used to like jumping into the fish pond, which was
sure.
Okay.
That's lovely.
He loved it. It was great. He was always very clean.
Okay.
Didn't do much for the aquaponics.
Well, we have a long-time friend, Adam Woodhams, who is let's call him a gardening guru. Is he a
horticulturist?
Oh, he's professional, isn't he?
Absolutely. We used to be friends at Better Homes and Gardens together.
Yeah, there we go. Mm-hmm. Well, he's got something to say about people who are travelling and wanting to grow food on the road, as well as small apartments and whatever. So check this out. Adam, let's talk about gardening now, trying to talk to people perhaps who are travelling or maybe who are setting up in a small environment, the so-called micro homes, small homes, tiny houses and whatever. So Kay and I are now travelling in a caravan. She wants to grow some herbs and spices.
Yep.
Any ideas there, any secrets? I know some people do, but is it difficult?
The funny thing is you kind of almost have to treat them like pets when you're travelling. Because normally what you do...
take them to bed?
Not quite that much.
Right.
The fact is that the vast majority of herbs and even many of the vegetables do take well to growing in pots. So you've got a plus there. So it's in many respects not different to gardening on a balcony or in a courtyard. The difference is that you're going to have to pack them up every now and then and move with them. So most of the herbs, most of the veggies, as I said, can handle all this sort of stuff. You do need to apply the same sort of rules that you would if you were container gardening on balconies. So, a quality potting mix, good pots. But the difference is you're going to have to start looking at things like making sure instead of you might normally select a tall pot and terracotta and that sort of thing, you're going to want to start looking at the lightweight pots instead. So if you've got bigger veggies and things, you want to use the lightweight composite type pots. But you also want to start looking at things that are a bit more squat because if you're going to load all this stuff, you've got it outside the annex when you set up for a week or so, and then you're going to load it in the van before you take off. You don't want something that's top heavy that's going to tip over. So you're better off sticking with low troughs and low tubs and those sort of things that have a lower centre of gravity, so they're not going to move around.
There's a weight issue too, isn't it, with caravanning? So
exactly. So you want those sort of things. Now, a lot of herbs and veggies can grow with pretty condensed roots, so you don't have to worry too much about getting them into a bigger pot and a bigger pot and a bigger pot. The thing is they'll just get thirstier and hungrier, so they can tolerate being a bit root bound. And bear in mind too, most veggies and most herbs are actually annual plants. So they're only going to be suitable in those pots for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, depending on the circumstances and the plant.
So once they've grown and you pick them, you plant it seasonal.
Things like rosemary, things like chives, they can keep going for a long time. Things like mint, the oregano, they're more perennial type herbs.
They're sort of kitchen shelf thing, aren't they? They're just there for you.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of the fussier ones, like, things like basil and coriander and stuff like that, they're short-term growth. So you don't have to worry too much about pot size. But as I said, it might mean that they're going to get thirstier and hungrier. So you need to be thinking about liquid feeding them or keeping them fed well with a granular fertilizer. The real trick is going to be the vast majority of herbs and veggies like a lot of sun.
Right.
So if you're going to stick them inside the van while you're on the road for 2 days, you need to make sure when you get to the other end that you can put them in a spot where they are still going to get a lot of sun. And look, sometimes that might mean, because of the way you set the van up and you've got your annex out and all that sort of thing, you might actually have to commit yourself to going, okay, I'm going to have to put them on this side in the morning and I'll just need to move them around in the afternoon around the corner to get more sun. So, because most do want sort of, that 6-hour range of sun a day.
Now, with animals, there are restrictions of certain animals you can take into certain states. Does the same apply for plants?
It does, yes. There are some restrictions. When we moved up here, I brought an enormous number of my plants up with me because they're, special. Some have grown for years and years. Some are very, very dear to me because they're from family members that have passed away and all those sort of things. What I did was I actually got in touch with the domestic quarantine to check what was okay to move around and what wasn't.
Okay.
And they asked me for a list of the plants and they said, yeah, fine. Normally the restrictions, for instance, around here, around the sort of Noosa Sunshine Coast region, you have to be very careful with moving banana plants around. So there's very, very tight restrictions on moving banana plants because of the potential of transferring diseases.
I can say, yeah.
So if I buy banana plants here, I'm only allowed to buy them from certified growers that are allowed to sell into this region. So there are some things you need to be aware of, but the vast majority of things moving around within the state, you're not going to have an issue. There is, in fact, a little guidebook you can get, and so it basically is about interstate quarantine, and it tells you about what you're allowed to move around in the different areas. And this sort of stuff, if you make sure you go onto the government web pages, you'll find there is good information about
we'll look up some details on that and put it on our website.
Yes. No, look, it's gardening. If people are on the road, it's great fun and easy to do. My dear cousin, Alex, has been on the road for many years with her husband's a FIFO and works all around the country. So she follows him around with the car and the big van, and she gardens wherever she goes to. Yeah.
So it's doable. It is something people can do.
It's very doable. And
just start off small with a little bit.
One of the easiest ways to make your van a home, to really, really say this is our place.
I think that's the whole point.
Yeah,
that's what I like. I like seeing a few flowers maybe and the basics.
If you want to make sure that you're going to get the best out of all these plants that you're moving around with, only ever buy a premium top shelf potting mix. Don't buy this cheap rubbish. You spend the money on a good bag of potting mix. And use quality controlled release fertilizers like Osmocote that are going to last for 6 or 9 months, because that means you basically don't have to worry about refeeding all the time and stuff like that. All you do is then just give them an occasional liquid feed or a sea salt or something like that.
You're not sponsored by Osmocote,
No.
Oh, you should be.
I would have given you a disclaimer up the front.
All right, Adam Woodhams, thank you very much for that. Yes, great.